Hi, everyone. This is Christian Goss with Civic Mapper. We're about to get started here. I think I'm here with Beth Dutton at Three Rivers Wet Weather. I think she's going to provide a short little introduction, and then we'll get rolling.
Hello, everyone. This is Beth Dutton, Program Manager from Three Rivers Wet Weather. Thank you very much for joining us today for the demo of Three Rivers Wet Weather's new interactive map of the Algosan Service Area Wastewater Network, the Regional Sewer Infrastructure Atlas, or the Sewer Atlas, which was officially rolled out at our sewer conference last month. You can access the atlas by logging in with your MDS email address and password, then clicking on 3RWW Regional Sewer Infrastructure Atlas. Matt Mercurio and Christian Goss from Civic Mapper developed the Sewer Atlas for us, and Christian will be leading the webinar today to walk you through a demonstration of its features. The Sewer Atlas builds on the features of the previous web map, but it's on a standard ArcGIS online platform, which will allow for an open database for MDS users and the future ability for municipalities and authorities to update the data as changes occur. The new atlas also integrates your comments and suggestions from a web map user survey that Three Rivers conducted several months ago. Regional sewer infrastructure mapping will continue to be very important as we move forward with regionalization, source reduction, and other initiatives. We hope that it helps your organization's mission, and please keep providing us with feedback on how we can make it better. So now Christian's going to provide an overview. He's going to walk through and some of the features and provide a tutorial. And about halfway through, he'll turn on a Q&A feature so that you can ask questions as you go along. So thank you very much. And Christian, you can take it from here.
Okay, thanks, Beth. Beth kind of covered what we're going to do. We'll look just an overview of the tool and what we did. I'll walk through the interface, kind of what you're going to see on the screen and where the buttons are that you want to use to use the map. And then I'll walk through a kind of a general workflow that will show the different aspects of the map in action. And like Beth said, I'll pause occasionally for opportunities for question and answer. If I don't get to all the questions, and depends on how many people ask, I will try to respond them in email in our follow-up email. So with this new map and the switch, from where we sat, we had a few goals, a few things we wanted to do for Three Rivers Wet Weather. The first was that we wanted to separate the data from the map in order to facilitate sharing of the data, live sharing of the data, and updates to the map that could be done separately from updates to the data. So there's cartography, there's the database, and we pulled those things apart. That was important to do in order to enable that live data sharing and in the future editing of the data online rather than kind of continuing on a piecemeal or occasional annual editing process, which was quite difficult actually. So in bringing everything into one database, we look to centralize it. By building the map the way rebuilding it the way we did, we also wanted to ensure we could leverage data sources that other organizations keep and maintain, such as Allegheny County, so that we didn't have to maintain, say, the parcel data set for the county. We could just link to theirs, and theirs is updated daily almost. One of the benefits that we were looking for in building this map was to make sure we could tap into live data streams easily, and in that way expand the ability to customize the map and have that not be a kind of a barrier, but rather something that's really easy to do. We switched platforms too. We wanted to make sure that we were using something that's really well supported and widely supported. So we looked at Esri. They make ArcMap and ArcGIS software. And we looked at some of their open web applications. Open meaning that the code behind the software is human readable and it's out there. It's easy for anybody to adapt and use. So this isn't a black box. That was important because this this data kind of transcends organizations and people. So we wanted to make sure that, and there's a lot of people out there who know Esri, and they'll probably be around for a long time. So we wanted to make sure that the data in MAP could continue to evolve without relying on, say, one organization or one person. The benefit of that too is that right now, the platform we're using it's modern and it's mobile friendly, which is important since we're talking about using this map for field work. So it'll adapt to your phone, and it'll adapt to tablets, more importantly, and modern touchscreen devices. So with that, that's kind of why we're doing what we're doing. If you've never accessed the previous app or the new one, there are two ways to get to it. The first is to go to threeriverswetweather.org, which I'll just navigate over to now. On the Resources tab on the right side, there's a link to Municipal Data Support, and that'll take you to this page, mds.threeriverswetweather.org. Now, to use the tools on this page, you need to log into Three Rivers Wet Weather site, so you can request an account. I'm already logged in here, but to do that, there would be a Create Account button here. Once you're in and logged in, the Regional Sewer Infrastructure Atlas, or just the Sewer Atlas for short, can be accessed in this first tab. There's a link for the map, and there's a link for a user guide, an online user guide that we've created. And I'm actually going to go to that first. We wrote just basic help documentation that describes both the map, the interface, kind of the buttons you're going to see, and then some common tasks, things that you might find yourself doing frequently, but it's really, they're no particular order. This is just kind of technical instructions for doing different things. So if you have a question that could be, or a question that sounds like, how do I do X? This is where you'd come and look. What we're also building, though, to help more specific workflows, because we know people have some very specific needs for this tool, is that we're looking at creating user guides. And we've already created one, and I'll actually walk through this one more or less later in this webinar. And these user guides are intended to represent kind of generalized versions of the workflows that people would use this tool for. And so it goes through step by step. You would do A, you would do B, and then you would do C. So that's the help documentation. And as I said, you can access that through the tab here, read the RSI user guide. But let's go to the map. I've preloaded everything, by the way, so we didn't have any huge delays in this live demo. When you open the map, what you'll see is a broad view of kind of the Alcosan service area. The first layers you'll see on the map here, which is right in front. The blue is our sewer network. There are points of connection listed, or shown rather, and some other data. So let's walk through kind of everything we have access to right now in your initial view. I'll refer to this side of the screen, the side with the map, as the map window. The other side of the screen I'll refer to as the information window as we go through the webinar. So for the map, if you've ever used a web map before, it's the same kind of controls. You can drag to pan, you can use the zoom buttons to zoom in, and it'll refresh. And our data set's pretty big and heavy, so there can be a lag. But once you've used the tool, it will cache on your machine, and it'll run faster. You can also use the scroll wheel too to zoom in and out. Now, if you end up way somewhere else, what you can do is hit the little home button in the top left-hand corner, and that'll take you back to our initial view. Now, if you're using this in the field, or if you're interested in the particular location you're sitting at right now, we've added a feature into this version of the map for geolocation. So this will leverage your GPS or your mobile data to figure out close or exactly where you are, depending on the accuracy. So we can click that, and that'll zoom us right into where we are. Also on this screen is a search bar up top. This search bar can take in multiple types of data. It'll take in addresses pretty easily, so we can look up Three Rivers Wet Weather's location. It actually uses two different address databases. The first result it'll give you is the counties, and that's the most accurate. But if the county doesn't have the data and some of Alcosan service area is outside the county, you can use the World Geocoder. It's a little less accurate, but it'll get you there in most places. You click on the result, and it'll take you right in. The other thing we can do here is type in coordinates. Remember, in Western Pennsylvania, it's always the large negative number first and the smaller or lower magnitude positive number second, XY. That'll get us to somewhere in town. If you enter those in reverse, you'll end up in Antarctica somewhere. So make sure you're always entering XY. Also in here, we can actually enter wastewater structure IDs. I don't have a demo for that, but I will show you that in the workflow later. But that can allow you to search manholes, outfalls, if you have the ID already. So I'll just go back home here. Now on the top right-hand side of the map, we have three buttons. There's a measurement tool, which lets you measure area, and this probably is more effective at a smaller scale, but we'll show you that. Double click and it'll report in the window here your area. We can also measure distance and it'll report that in feet. Double click, you can actually switch the units as needed. Now you can also in this tool get the precise location of your cursor. So you can click on this third button here, hover somewhere, and it'll report your longitude and latitude back. The second button here is actually a print button. This will allow you to create a PDF or a JPEG image of the map. It does that in the background. I have to provide a warning right now. We're trying to resolve a security issue with this particular tool, so it's not working right now. But you can see what the dialog looks like. It'll tell you it's creating. You can actually, that's the error it's throwing with the security issue. When it does work though, it'll give you your PDF right there and you can download it. The PDF actually comes out formatted with a title, a legend, compass, scale bar. So you don't have to do any of that work. It's really quite nice. The final button up here is actually an annotation tool. And if you want to make notes on the map, and these would be public notes, you can use the little push pin, drag it to a point on the map, and take a note. Close it, save on the map, and it'll render as a little push pin kind of once you're done with your session, once you come back in. So that's useful if there are features missing for now until we enable kind of full editing ability. But for now, we can identify issues with the data. We can identify new data, questions, comments. Feel free to use that. When that data is updated, it will actually notify us, so we'll know to look for it. Okay, so that's really the mapping window. Oh, there's actually one more thing. In the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little arrow. That provides an overview map. So it provides a zoomed out version of what you're looking at. So when you zoom in, you can kind of get a sense of the context where you're at. And that'll update as you zoom in and out on the main map too. You can just click that arrow to close it. Okay. So that is the map window. On the info window, what we have over here on the left-hand side, this can actually be collapsed with some arrows, just so you're aware. But by default, it opens to our kind of basic information. This just provides a little overview of what you can do. If you need a reminder, it has a link to the help documentation, Alcosan, and Three Rivers Wet Weather. The buttons at the top control what you can see in this window. So the second button is the legend. This illustrates what you can see on the map now. So we have our annotation layer that will show us push pins. Our point of connections are these white circles here. And our sewer network. Now the legend will change dynamically with whatever data is shown on the map, The sewer network in particular, we have it so it displays different levels of information at different scales. So when you zoom way in, and I'll show this in the demo later, more information is added, more detail about the sewer is added right on the map. The third button over here are additional map layers. So this is really great. We have contextual data from other sources, including Allegheny County. We have their general reference layers. Their real estate layers, which includes parcels, which is super useful. We have their imagery, which is more up to date than usually than the imagery we're sourcing from Bing currently in the background. In addition to that, we have actually the green infrastructure data that the Three Rivers Wet Weather is also hosting on another map, and that's another webinar. But we can actually turn any of these layers on and off to provide additional information, anything else you need. Additionally, we have some different views of the sewer network. We have a layer that actually highlights the sewer sheds by point of connection, and it looks kind of like Skittles right now. But what this hopefully does is provide an overlay that lets you kind of visually discern where the different points of connection service. We also have regional flow monitor data, points, and catchments. Those layers are a little slow to load, so I'm going to hold off now, but great other pieces of information to add. This fourth button here is the network trace tool. I'm going to demo this in the third part of the webinar, so I'll just pass that for now. And the last button here is the more, and that just reveals a couple other tools. We have a select features tool, which will filter the sewer data based on some predefined queries. Right now, it's set to look at data by owner. So you might click this, and you can select who the owner is. It gives you a drop-down list. You can pick that. What it'll do. Let's just give that a whirl. What this will do is actually return a highlighted layer. You can see it in green here of all the infrastructure owned by that owner. And the other queries will do similar things. So it'll highlight, for example, sewer type. You can ask it to look for combined or separate systems, gravity enforced main. Likewise, in Alcosane, I'll highlight Alcosane owned data. For more advanced queries, while we're on the topic, there is an attribute table that can be accessed. This will actually allow you to filter any of the data sets using a kind of pseudo SQL type filter. And this is really for the more advanced user. But what you can do this way is specify, well, maybe you want to know owner and sewer type, or you want to know owner and point of connection, or sewer type and point of connection, or any other attributes, or pipes above 80 inches and owner. So that the table will allow you to do that. In the help guide that I showed earlier, we actually describe how you can write those queries. The final button here we have is the base map gallery. What this does is allow you to change the background. It's nice having imagery in the back for context, especially when you're zoomed in, if you're working with the data and you really want to see what's around, make sure you have a sense of the landmarks and whatnot. But if you're trying to use this map, in particular with the printing feature, or if you're just even doing screen captures, sometimes the other layers will help you communicate things more clearly. So we have just some basic, simple dark and light layers in. These are standard Esri layers. OpenStreetMap is in there as well. OpenStreetMap, for those who don't know, it's a crowdsourced map database. It is updated every second all over the world by volunteers. So if there's been really recent changes and Bing hasn't caught up and Esri hasn't caught up, you'll probably find it in OpenStreetMap. And then we also have a topographic layer, and that's just there to highlight some of the topography in the area with a nice clean background. We'll leave Bing on for now. That's the default. That'll be on when you turn it on. So what I want to do now is actually just take questions. You should be seeing on your webinar now the opportunity to ask questions. If you click on the button, I believe it's on the left-hand side of your screen, it'll open a window on the right, and you can ask questions. I'll give it a few minutes, but while I'm waiting, I'm going to set up the next part of the presentation here. Okay. Not much activity on the Q&A side, so, oh, there we go. Is there an export features option to be able to create our own GIS maps? Yes, there will be. As soon as we resolve kind of some of the sharing, I guess, logistics, it is all set up, so we can just actually give you a live link. But we can also enable a download for shape files. Right now, actually, you can download the data as a table through the attribute table. When that data is ready for, well, when we've kind of resolved the sharing logistics, what you'll be able to do is go to the layer list, click the down arrow, and under the description button, it will take you to actually the services page, and that's what you'd use to link to it. So when that's ready, we'll have a write-up, and we will notify everyone how to do that. So thank you. Okay, well, if, oh, one more. Does the system identify any stormwater lines? Only to the extent that these are often CSO or combined systems, but dedicated stormwater lines, this data set does not. Now, an update that was started in 2014 started to add that in, but we've stuck strictly with sewer for this one. Third question, is there a way to summarize data from a trace? Yes, there is. And so what I'll show that in the next part of the presentation. All right, so I'm going to keep going with the webinar. If there are any more questions, I'll address them at the end or after. So what I want to do now is actually just walk through the workflow that I described earlier. This is kind of a field workflow where the user might be out in the field trying to sort out where an illicit discharge is coming from. So what we're going to do is leverage all the parts of this map. We're going to look at how to find ourselves, how to use the layers to search the context, how to run a trace, how to understand the results of the trace, and then what to do with that at the end. So the first step in our example here is okay. Field staff, they've gotten a call. They've gone to the field, and they need to figure out what infrastructure is around or nearby. The first and probably the best choice is if they're in the field using field tablets, they can use the geolocation tool, and that is up here in the left, and I demonstrated that first. It's really the best option. It'll get you there fast. It's one button press. But in my case, I'm not in the field right now. So what we're going to do is actually just search by address for this example. And then up the top, and it'll take us to where we received the call from. So once we're zoomed in to the spot, what we can do is use the layers that are on screen. We can actually tap them to figure out what infrastructure we're dealing with. So any of these layers you can click, you can see the full set of attributes for them, everything from ownership to length and pipe inverts. And if they're pipes, you can see what structures are upstream and downstream. This data is, just as the caveat is, it's the 2011 data. We know there's 2015 data that's being collected and massaged out there. And our hope is actually to pull that in the background and have that data in here instead of what you're seeing now. But for the time being, this will work. Now, you can also click structures. In this case, this is a manhole. Maybe in this scenario here, we already know the manhole ID. So let's just try that. Zoom out a little bit. Like I said earlier in the presentations, we can actually search by wastewater structure ID. So what we'll do, and that'll take us right there, just by entering it in the box. Any ID outfall that's used for structures, it'll find. Now let's say you have an address, but you need to get coordinates actually for that site. I showed you one way to get coordinates, and that was using the annotate, the measurement tool button, which gives you the ability to press a button here, get a location, and it prints it out there. Also on the bottom of the screen, you may have noticed there's a kind of live coordinate feed. It's actually tracking my mouse right there. So you could hover it over it, but if you move your mouse, of course it moves. There's a little button there as well. It looks like the one on the measurement tool. If you click that and then click your spot, it'll pause that. And so then you can get your coordinates. You can do that, for houses, for any structure. You can click right on it and get the coordinates. So now we're at our location. What you may have noticed, and I kind of mentioned this before, is that we have different levels of data that will show up at different zoom levels. So the further we zoom in, the more detail we get. What we can see now are arrows. These indicate the direction of wastewater flow. The little dotted lines and blue arrows from the buildings, those are virtual laterals. That's a fairly coarse analysis. It's an estimate of where the buildings are connected to. It's based almost entirely on proximity, except in some cases where we could actually sort out the elevation. It had enough resolution that we could figure that things weren't flowing uphill. But always double check that. If our map says that the pipe should be going one way and that one way is actually over a rise, it's probably wrong. So double check, but that is the virtual lateral data there. What we can also do is bring in layers from Allegheny County for reference here. We can pull in the real estate reference data. By default, this will bring up our parcel layer. You can actually get PIN numbers and blocks and lots from this, or rather just the block and lot shows automatically. Their general reference data has building outlines and contours, if that's useful. As I mentioned before, we're using Bing imagery, but the county also has great imagery. It's higher res, it's a little more up to date usually. I think in this case we have 2014 county imagery and 2015 Bing imagery, but sometimes Bing's labeling is a little strange. So working with a lot of data sources, use the best reference to help you along. You can also look at 2013 county imagery too. If that just helps you provide a better context. Some of it's taken in the winter, some of it's taken in the summer, so tree cover can obscure your view as well. All right, so now that we have our point, we know where we're at, we know what infrastructure is around it, we can run a trace and try to figure out what might be at the source here. Now, as it turns out, it looks like I picked a site that only has a block, so we'll go somewhere else so we can actually do a good example here. We'll trace. What you do is on the trace window, grab the flag tool. It'll say click to add point, and what you do is bring it over to your line. You don't have to be super precise. Try to get close, but it'll automatically snap to the nearest pipe in the analysis. Once you've done that, you'll see the little target there. Hit trace. Now this sends the geoprocessing request to another server. It'll take a little bit of time usually to come back, but you're not frozen. You can actually continue to scroll around the map. You can even navigate away from the tool if you want. I'm just going to turn off our county imagery layers here for a sec. Now you can see the tracing results now, and maybe if we use a lighter background layer, you can see them better, or a darker one. Once the trace is completed, it'll highlight upstream pipes in orange, downstream pipes and structures, in red. When you zoom in, you can click on those results. Just as you can with anything else, it'll tell you it's an upstream pipe, give you all the same information you had before. Now, what's also nice is that in the trace tool in the information window, it gives you a brief summary about what has been traced, and we're actually working on making this a little more robust and useful, so that it reports length of pipe by pipe diameter, by material, and other things. For now, it just gives you a count of the number of pipe segments and structures. Below that, in the drop downs, it actually gives you a list, and again, we're looking to make this more useful for users. But right now, what that list does is actually take you to the different pieces of infrastructure. It's kind of random, and it's actually not that great, so I would advise not doing that. Use the map to kind of visually identify the infrastructure you're interested in. Now, to download the results for further analysis, and this is where it gets pretty nice. This will give you access to all the layers, or one if you're only interested in one. Lets you save as a CSV. It does that pretty quickly, which you can then open in Excel. Now, if you're savvy with pivot tables or other things, this would be pretty easy to summarize. You could use a pivot table to just grab a subset of the data you want, bring in the fields you want to summarize it. We could look at length and diameter and other attributes, and we can begin to summarize it. So this is PWSA, 8-inch pipes, VCP. I don't know what that means because I'm not an engineer, but you might. So there's a quick and dirty way to summarize data pretty quickly, just with the output there. Now, what we can also do, of course, is run that print job on the trace. And this is where I think that the base maps, the cleaner base maps, might come in use, especially if you're trying to present this or attach it to a report. Put on a lighter or darker layer, it's your preference, and that way you can see the results more easily. So I want to stop again to ask for questions. I've covered most things that I wanted to cover. So if there are any questions, enter them in there. Just from before, meant to ask number of house laterals from a trace. We don't have any of the private infrastructure like house laterals in here. Just the virtual laterals, which, as I said, are our best guess estimate as to where the connections from private property into the public infrastructure go. Can you store a document on a coordinate location? Actually, if Patricia, if you could just clarify what you mean there, so we can look at our coordinates. We can download them. Actually, I think I know what you mean. Can we save a view of the map at a particular spot? Not right now, but I think we can add bookmarks into this. We'll have to check into that, though. That would be useful. Another question, does the search by ID tool require that your IDs be unique? And the answer is no. It's just a text search at the end of the day. So we can actually search a partial ID, and it'll bring up everything that has that text in it. So let me just bring one in here for demo. So if I search MHO4, I think we're limited. Well, I have it limited right now to only returning 10 or so results, but in this case, we only got one. I have to increase the number of search results that are coming back. No, but the answer is no. The IDs don't have to be unique. So I think the manhole IDs tend to be unique, but the answer is no. We can also, if there are other things that you need to search, we can add in the ability to search that too. So if it is, if there's another ID number that's in this data that we've not talked about, or something else, we can even set up combinations in that query tool so you can find things quickly. You can think of that query tool as shortcuts. I guess while we're waiting, I'll just demo a way to filter cirrus structures real quick, and then I'll get to Patricia's question. So to actually do the more advanced filtering, what you can do is it gives you access to all the fields we have. So we might look at point of connection. You can actually get to list all the unique values that are in that field. In fact, there are a lot of different point of connections. We can add combinations. And this lets us build really complicated expressions. And these, there's really no practical limit to the complexity here. I have an expression that's powering this map that has 400 some criteria in it. So it's a really nice way to filter that data down. So Patricia's question, looking at storing inspection reports or sample results for a facility at the location coordinates. I see. That's not something we talked about, but certainly linking, say, this database with the way you guys are storing your reports. Say we have a hyperlink from a particular point that links out to your report. Definitely something we could talk about for sure. I mean, the possibilities are really limitless when it comes to this stuff, but in theory. When you're done with the trace, by the way, there's a button to clear it, and that'll remove everything from the layer. So I'll just give a few more minutes for questions. I've covered everything I wanted to. Last question, are there varying levels of user permissions? Right now, it's just the MDS login is our paywall, so to speak. It's not a paywall, but that's our authentication system. In the future, if we look, or when we look at allowing editing, yes, there probably will be. There'll probably be trusted users for editing. That's still to be determined. We'll work that out as we go here. So I just want to highlight again the user guides we've built here. The workflow I just kind of walked through is the illicit discharge tracing guide. You can get to that through the guides heading on our help documentation page. It walks you through the interface, the different windows. We've used animations to try to illustrate what I've showed you today, wherever we could. Screen captures of the different features. How to search infrastructure. This is an example here, actually a better one of only using a partial search query. If you can see that A20Z, we searched here and it returned, in that case, 6 different structures. Our approach with the map has been to keep it somewhat living. So we develop this in an agile manner. So we're always making changes and tweaks and improving in performance. So if there's anything you feel that this needs to have, or any tweaks, or if you just can't see it, let us know, and we'll do everything we can to make this more usable for you. If there aren't any more questions, I'll wrap it up here. If Beth wants to chime in.
Well, thank you very much, Christian. That was a great overview, and we're really looking forward to the potential of this new atlas.
Okay. We'll send a follow-up email with a link to the video, the recording of this webinar. It'll be on YouTube. If you have any other questions, feel free to email myself, christian.goss@civicmapper.com, or Beth b.dutton@3rww.org. Thanks for joining, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Thanks.